Okay, so last section we're going to look at this week is section 1.5. And the idea in section 1.5 is we're going to be taking an equation, we're going to be solving it for a variable, but the difference is we're not going to have numbers in it to start. Right? It's just going to be an equation with letters, and we're going to try to get a specific letter by itself. We still use all the same rules. Sam, that I've been teaching you for the past 3 or 4 classes, still use it. Okay. So if you have an equation with 2 or more variables, we call that a literal equation. So we're going to be taking literal equations, and we're going to rewrite them. So in your first blank on your guided notes, fill in what I underlined in red, which is literal equation. When we rewrite it, that means to get a variable by itself. So a lot of the equations that we work with at first, you're not going to get a number for the answer. We're just going to get an expression. That means something that still has letters in it. Okay? And we're going to look at one right now. So they'll give you a formula, and they'll tell you in the formula what letter they want by itself. Now the formula might have a number in it. But when we're done, the answer is still probably going to have a letter. It's not going to be like we did on the homework and we got like x equals 2. Right? It's going to be a little bit different. So here's a formula. 3y plus 4x equals 9. So all you guys have to do is fill in the 3y plus 4x equals 9. Because I didn't write down the problem on the notes. And what they want us to do is get y alone. So when we're done, we want it to look like this. Y equals, and I basically want to know what would go in that box. So what we have to do is move everything from the left-hand side that's not a y over to the other side. So we'll look at our steps. First thing under simplify would be distributive property. Maya, do we have any parentheses in this problem? No, so we don't have to do distributive property. Finnegan, what's the next thing we look for under simplify?
Exponents?
No, not exponents. Anyone remember? Yeah?
It's combining like terms.
Combining like terms. We don't have any like terms to combine here on the left. One of them has a y, one of them has an x. So we don't have to worry about that. So now we're in the add and subtract step. We want to get the y by itself. So this is going to involve 2 steps. The first thing we're going to try to get rid of is the 4x. Put that on the other side. Then we're going to finish by getting rid of this 3. If you get confused at what to do, pretend like this was your problem. Make up a number here. You don't have to write that because I'm going to erase it. But if your goal was to get y by itself there, what would you do on both sides in this bottom equation? Yeah?
Divide by 3.
Not yet. We're not there yet. Yep. Subtract the 12. You would subtract the thing that's right here. Well, we don't have a 12 in our problem. We have this. We have a 4x. So how do you think we're going to move that 4x to the other side? Yep. Exactly. Yep, so we're going to subtract 4x on both sides, just like that. So we have to do the same thing on both sides. Now, when I do that, Aiden, what's positive 4x combined with negative 4x? 0. This is gone. And Tirza, what's on the left-hand side now?
3y.
Yep. Just 3y on the left. And what's on the right? No, 5. Dorian?
9 minus 4x.
9 minus 4x. You can't combine the 9 and the minus 4. Why can't we combine them? Yeah?
They're not the same terms.
Yeah, they're not the same term. They're not like terms. So when we move it to the other side, this is a little different from yesterday. Usually we moved a number and we could combine it with the other number that was already there. Today you can't because this has a letter. This is just a number. They're not like terms. All right. And now we're down to our last step. What else do I need to get rid of that's still next to the y? What else don't I want there, Abby? I don't want that 3. And how would you get rid of a 3? And in this case, it's 3 times y. So we want to get rid of timesing by 3. Yeah, that's... Yeah, you're going to divide by 3. And this is how you have to do it. Remember, we always say when you do something, you have to do it on both sides. With division, you have to divide by 3 here, here, and here. I know when we add and subtract, we don't do it quite that way. We don't do it to every spot. But with division, you have to. You have to divide everything by the same number. That's gone. So now the only thing we have on the left-hand side is what they want. It said to solve for what? Well, we've done it. Y equals, and then simplify what you can. What's 9 divided by 3? Yep. 3. Minus. And the way we usually write this part at the end is 4/3. And you can leave the x in the top, or you can just put it right in the middle of the fraction. It doesn't matter which way you leave it. It's the same thing. Most people put the x right in the middle. But if you leave it in the top, that is okay. And that's your answer. So you can see the answer is not just a number. It still has letters in it, and that's kind of what's going to happen today. Any question on that first one? All right, let's try another one. So this will be example 2. And this one is y equals 3x. Let me see. Do I want to change that? Yeah, I might change that. Let's just cross the z out. Let's just do it like that. Y equals 3x plus 5x. And I want to solve that for x. So when I'm done, I'd like to have the x all by itself, probably on the right side this time. So we'll probably end up with something like this. And what's in that box would be our answer. Okay, so let's go through our steps. Simplify. Does anybody see something I can do first under the simplify step this time? Sean? Yeah, we can combine like terms. What's 3x plus 5x? Yeah. It's 8x. Now, right now, that equation is solved for y. That means the y is by itself. They want us to solve for x. So we want to get the x by itself. So look at what you have with the x. You don't want that number there. Think about what you would do on both sides to get rid of it. Caleb?
5.
Yep. And what would you divide by?
8.
Yep. And divide by 8. 8 divided by 8 is gone. Now we have x equals y divided by 8. And that's our answer. So what we're really doing is we're just taking an equation they give us and we're moving the letters around. That's what we're doing. We're actually going to do that and move that. Okay. I was going to do one more thing, but we're going to do that. Let me try one more like the first one. Let's say we had y equals. This one, you know what? Let's call this example 2b. Because you guys you already have an example 3 on your page. So I'm just going to do it. You can do it right below example 2. Say y equals 2x plus 4. And I want to solve for x, which means get the x by itself. This time, we don't have any simplified. There's no like terms to combine. So we can go right into the adding and subtracting step. Does anybody see something I could do on both sides to start to get the x by itself? We get rid of the things that are further away first, and then we deal with the things that are right next to the letter last. And if you follow Sam, that will help you. Yep.
Right.
So if we jump right to the multiply and divide step, then what we're saying is there's no addition or subtraction in this problem, but I think there is addition or subtraction here. Does anybody see what you would have to add or subtract from both sides to start to get x by itself? Michael?
Subtract 4 from both sides.
Yes. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides. Just like that. And Michael, what's positive 4 minus 4? 0. That's gone. And Michael, what do I have on the left-hand side now?
Y over negative 4.
So what did we do on both sides?
Subtracting 4.
We subtracted 4. So what would we have?
Y minus 4.
Yes. Y minus 4. You cannot combine the y and the 4. They're different. So we have y minus 4 on the left. And Maya, what about on the right?
You have 2x left.
Just the 2x. Now, at this point, we have an equation that's not solved for any variable. The x isn't by itself. The y isn't by itself. It's in between now. Our goal is to finish it up and get x by itself. So what's still next to the x that I don't want? Yep, the 2. And how would I get rid of 2 next to the x? Sean? Yep, and where would you divide?
You divide 2 and 2 on
So put a 2 here. Where else?
under the 4 1.
Under the 4, and where else?
4.
Yes. So we have to, when we divide by a number in front like that, you have to do it everywhere. Okay. 2 divided by 2 is gone. Now we have x equals y divided by 2. We can just leave that the way it is. Minus. But what's negative 4 divided by 2? That we could simplify. Yep. -2. And that's how you take the equation you started with and rearrange it so that x is by itself. Okay, any question on that one? Alright, so that wasn't one we had. So let's go back to one that we do have. I think you guys already have this all printed on your guided notes, right? Okay, and you got the diagram, I think, too. So it says that you own a rectangular piece of property, okay, like that your house is on. So you own that space. We know that the space that you own is 500 feet deep. This is the road. I don't know how well you can see it on your sheet, but that's the road in front of your house. It says that this space has an area of 100,000 square feet. That's the area of your property. Now they have to put a new water system in, and you are responsible for replacing all the pipe on your part of the property. So your neighbors is after that, so they have to pay for that. But you have to pay to replace the pipe in the front part of your house. And because you pay for the pipe by how long the pipe is, we have to figure out how wide is your property. We know it's 50 feet deep, or 500 feet deep, but we don't know how wide it is. We have to figure that out, and that'll help us figure out how much you're going to have to pay for the new water pipe. So, when they say find the frontage of your lot, that is this, from here to there. And a number that they give us is very important is this. They tell us that the area of the property is 100,000 square feet. Now, what shape is our property? They tell us that right away. Yep, it's a rectangle. So what we're going to need is the formula for the area of a rectangle. Does anybody remember what the formula is for the area of a rectangle? Yeah? So width plus length would just tell you how long it is plus how wide it is. But you want to multiply them, yeah. It's the length times the width. And what do we really want to know in this formula to figure out the cost of this new pipe? A couple of these things we already know, but there's going to be one letter here we don't know, and we need to know. Yep?
W.
Yeah, we don't know the W. That's what we need. What is this 500 going to be in that formula? It's my what?
The length.
That's the length of the property. It's how long it is. How about the A? Do we know what the area of the property is? Yeah. 100,000. So we already know two of the numbers we need, and we're going to find the third one. Now, Brady said that we want to solve for the width. Let's do that first before we put any numbers in. So just like we learned how to do before, I want to solve this formula for W. If I want to solve for W, what's next to W that I don't want there? If I'm trying to get the W by itself. So when I'm done, I want to have something with a W on one side and nothing else with it. What's with the W that we don't want there if we're trying to get W by itself? Yep, the length. If we're trying to solve for W, then that means W wants to be alone. Doesn't want anything next to it. So to solve that for W, we have L times W. How would you move L to the other side so W can be alone? Sean? Yeah. And what would you divide each side by? L. Right? Pretend like it was a number. 4 equals 8 times X. In our case, the A and the L aren't numbers yet. But it's the same idea. If you want to get this thing alone, you divide by what's in front of it. So if I wanted to get the X alone, I would divide by what's in front of it. I would divide each side by 8. So in our case, as Sean said, divide by L. And Sean, what happens when you divide L by L? It cancels out and it's gone. Now we have a new formula. Still based on the one that I think Abby told me. Area equals length times width, except now it's area divided by length equals width. And width is exactly what we want to know. So let's fill in the two numbers you guys already told me. Area was 100,000. So I'm going to put 100,000 for A. Length. What was the length of the property that I own? Michael? How about Michael? 500 feet. And if I divide that, I'll get my width. So let's just type it in and see what we get. So 100,000 divided by 500 gives me a width of 200 feet. Okay. So now we know the width. It's 200 feet wide, my property, and 500 feet long. Now part B says, how much am I going to have to pay for the new water system? It costs $5.50 for every foot of pipe they have to replace. And the pipe goes all the way along underground in my front yard. So I have to pay $5.50 per foot. And I'm going to have to pay for 200 feet of pipe. So how would I figure out the total? It's $5.50 a foot, and I need to pay the company 250 feet. Or 200 feet for all the pipe. Yeah?
Multiplication.
Yeah, we multiply. So what would you multiply to find the cost?
5.52.
Yep. So it's 200 feet. That's the width of your property times $5.50 per foot of pipe. So we've got 200 times 5.50 means it's going to cost $1,100 for you to replace the pipe in the front of your house. Which that actually would be very cheap, because sometimes when they have to do work, or if the city charges you to replace something, it could be like $6,000 or $7,000 to get backhoe, dig up your front yard, and it could be a lot of money. So that would actually be pretty cheap. All right. So any question on that? Yeah. Yeah, just sign up. So if you needed this formula on a test, I would give it to you. You don't, it's not geometry, this is algebra, so you don't have to memorize the formula for the area of a rectangle. That's something that you would be given on a test. All right, so we have 2 examples left. Okay. So There's a few common formulas that we're going to use in this section. These are not formulas you have to memorize. If you want to make a reference sheet for the test tomorrow, these might be formulas you want to put on it. I think I mentioned that last time, but just as a reminder, you can have a reference sheet for the test. You can put whatever you want on it. You can put examples, formulas, but it can only be one page. You could just use a page from your homework, whatever you want to use, and that's optional. I know people that weren't in the class for the first week, maybe you didn't know that, but you can make a reference sheet.
How long do I have to sign up for the online class?
I think you have until lunch. So if you do it on the way to lunch, you should be fine. Yeah. Okay. So this first formula, it says, I don't know if you can read it well, it's a little fuzzy, but you need to fill in what's in the box here on your guided notes. Okay, this is on the back. It says C equals 5/9 F minus 32. This is a formula that's used to convert a temperature that we're used to, like Fahrenheit, into a temperature that most of the rest of the world uses, Celsius. Okay, most countries, like if you go to Europe, you ask for the temperature, they might say, oh, it's 17 degrees. You might think, wow, it's freezing. Not if it's Celsius. That's a big difference. So this is a formula that will change a Fahrenheit temperature into a Celsius temperature. Okay, here's another formula. Again, we might not get to all of these today. I'm just showing you a couple. We'll probably do 2 of them. This is a formula that's used in banking. And it's I equals P R T. So I don't know if you're super familiar with this idea, but if you put your money in a bank account and you come back and check it in like 6 months, if you didn't do anything, you notice how sometimes you have a little bit more money in there than when you had. Maybe you only have like 20 cents more or something. It's probably not a lot. But that's interest. It's money that the bank gives you because you put your money there. Because what the bank does is then they take the money there. Like let's say you go put $10 in your bank account. Well, what the bank is going to do is somebody comes to the bank and says, hey, I want to buy a house. Where do you think the bank gets the money from? To let me borrow to buy my house. From you. Because you put your money in the bank. So the bank is able to lend money out to other people. So when you get interest, it's kind of a way of the bank saying, thank you for giving us your money. So, interest is that little amount of money that you would make. Principal, that's what you have in the bank. So if you opened a bank account with $100, $100 would be your principal. It's how much money you have. And then R is the interest rate that the bank pays. For a savings account right now, it's probably less than 0.1%. It's pretty bad. Back in the 80s, there were some investments you could make like 18 or 19% on. It was great investments. They don't have those anymore. Not that interest rate anyway. And time is how long you're going to leave your money in the account. Usually it's measured in years. And maybe you'll leave it in there 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. It depends. If you look at this formula that's in this box right there, what letter is it solved for? The way it's written right now. Yeah?
The interest rate?
The interest rate, exactly. It is solved for the I. So if you see a question that says, what letter is the formula solved for before you do anything, it just is asking you what letter is already by itself. I didn't ask that in the top one, but how about the top one? What letter is the top formula solved for? Yeah?
C.
C. top formula is solved for C. The other option you could have for the top formula would be to rearrange it and solve it for F. That's the only other letter. This formula has a few different letters you could solve it for. The I, the P, the R, or the T. Any of them. Right now it's solved for I. And here's the last one. This is going to be one that we do something with right now. This is the distance, rate, time formula. It's a formula that will tell you how far you've gone based on how fast you're going and how long you've been going at that speed. And what letter is that formula solved for right now? Yep.
Distance traveled.
Yeah, it's solved for the letter D. In example 4, which we'll do in a second, we're going to solve that formula for a different letter. Anything there that anybody needs me to read because it came out a little fuzzy? Everybody has those 3 boxes? Okay, so let's do something with this one. Okay. Distance equals rate times time. So example 4, I'm just going to change it to the same one you guys have. Solve the distance formula for R. Okay, so now that should be the same one you guys have. First, can someone remind me, what's the distance formula? Yep. Right, distance equals rate times time. So they want us to take this formula and solve it for R. That means get the R by itself. What is next to the R that we don't want? What do we have to get rid of? Yep, time. We have to get time on the other side. Now, look at the R and the T. What are we doing with the R and the T the way it's written right there? Adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Just basically read what that says to me. Yeah, Michael? Yeah, we're multiplying them. The R is being multiplied by T. We don't want to multiply it by T. So how do I undo multiplying something by T? John? Yep. And what would you divide by? T. And T. So now we have a T here. We have a T in the bottom. We can cross those out. And Mia, what's on the right-hand side now? Yeah, just R. We got rid of what we didn't want there. And Cadence, what's on the left side? What else? D over T. Yep. So distance over time. That's what they want. Now, that's not a new formula. So the one that you started with right here, distance equals rate times time, this is still called the distance formula. It's just rearranged a different way, but it's still the same. Okay? It's like you put on a different shirt. It's still the same person, you just look a little different. It's still the same formula, it just looks a little different because you moved something around. Now, do you guys have a spot on yours where it says you traveled 310 miles?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that part. So we traveled 310 miles. And what else does it say? You drove for 4.5 hours. Drove for 4.5 hours. And the question they want to know is, how fast? Okay, well, how fast you're going, that's your rate of speed. R is how fast you're going. So we've already taken the formula and rearranged it. So we have speed by itself. That's good. Now, all we have to do is fill in distance and time. In the information they give me, which number is distance? Alex?
310.
Yep, 310. So I'm filling that in for D. And what about T? What did they tell me for that? Good, 4.5. So all we have to do now is, we don't have any algebra to do. We already did the algebra when we moved the T to the other side. We just have arithmetic. 310 divided by 4.5. 310 divided by 4.5. That's 68.9, roughly. So I'm going to say that it's about, that's what that symbol means. It's not exactly, it's rounded off. 68.9. Now, we would need a label on that. 310 was miles. 4.5 was hours. What do you think I'm going to put for a label on the 68.9? Because it represents how fast you were going. And here's the two labels. That's the distance and that's the time. Yep. I need to know specifically what your speed is measured in. Like, are you measuring it in inches per second?
Miles per hour.
Miles per hour. Yep. Yes.
Okay, with that.
Yes. There's a couple ways you can write miles per hour. You can write miles/hour, or you could put MPH. But either way. Any question on that? All right, I think we got, is this the last one? Yes. Okay, so you guys don't have that one. I'm going to skip that. I think you guys have this one, correct? Let me make sure the numbers are the same. $5,000 and $162.50. Okay. All right, so this problem is definitely about the interest because it mentions interest right there. Does anyone remember what the formula was that had the I in it? It was I equals, yep, PRT. And when you say PRT, that means P times R times T. Okay, so they want us to find the interest rate. What letter is the interest rate in I equals PRT? Yep. R, yeah. So I is the amount of interest you make. R is the rate. So what they want us to do is get the R by itself. What operation are you doing on the right side? Is it add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Okay.
Multiply.
Yep, we're multiplying. Let's start with the P. I don't want this P here. I'm trying to get the R by itself. Since I've taken the R and I've times it by P, how would I undo timesing the R by P to get rid of the P? Yep. Yep. And what would you divide by?
P.
P.
Both sides.
Yep, on both sides. So that's gone. Is the R by itself?
No.
No, we still multiply the R by T. So how would you get rid of multiplying the R by the T? We can do this at the same time. So we got rid of multiplying the R by P. How do we get rid of multiplying it by T? Yeah, Lexi? Yeah, divide by t. You can do it at the same time. Now, you got rid of the p by dividing by p, and you got rid of the t by dividing by t. Now we have a new formula that just looks a little different. It says that the interest is the principal times the time, divided by the interest is the principal, divided by the principal times the time. So the hope is now they want us to figure out the rate. Hopefully we know these other three things. What is the interest that it says we earned in this problem? Let's see, Michael?
$152.50.
Yeah, so let's fill that in. The interest we earned was $162.50. P is the principal. That's how much money we had. Did they tell us how much money we had in this account? Yeah. $5,000. And T is the time. Did they tell us how many years we're going to have this money in the bank for? Yeah? Half a year. So let's just call that as a decimal. What's 1/2?
1.5.
0.5. Yep. If you want to write it as 1/2, that's okay too. It's just for me to type on the calculator, 0.5 is easier. There we go. Now we just have to type that in and see what we get. All right, let's see. I definitely need a calculator for this. So we have 162.5 divided by 5,000. I'm just putting it in parentheses, just like it is there. 5,000 times 0.5. And that gives me an interest rate of 0.065. And that's how you leave the answer as a decimal. Sometimes when you see interest rates, they write it as a percent. That would be the same as 6.5%. All right, so what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to stop the video yet. I'm going to pause it. And right below the homework, so the homework is the worksheet. On Schoology for 1.5. Right below that, I'm going to put the topics that are going to be on tomorrow's test. So if you want to think about, okay, what should I really focus on? Study. I'll put those right at the end of the video.